We are so glad you have joined us today. We are on our second session with Dr. Leigh Richardson. Oh my goodness, our first one was amazing. And so we had to do a number 2 on this one. Dr. Leigh is a brain performance specialist. I was fascinated by this. I know I said that in the first one, but I was fascinated by this because so much change, and we talked about this in the last, has happened, and how we've reacted to that in our country, how we've reacted to that in just the world globally has just, I don't know, every day I wake up and I'm blown away by change, but then how we've reacted to it as well. And so our last session, we talked a lot about that, but today I kind of wanted to go to that next step and talking about where we find hope in the midst of that. You know, how do we instill hope and change? And what do we do when there's not a plan B in that change? What do we do? So 2 hard questions.
You know, if you don't have a plan B, how can you have hope? Ugh. You absolutely can't. And, you know, I saw a recent Gallup poll, and it said that 62% of people that they surveyed, what they were missing in their life was hope.
Wow.
And I think that ties into, you know, we've all got to be prepared that whatever comes our way, we've got to have some level of resilience, cognitively, emotionally, socially, and we're going to have setbacks. Mm-hmm. We're going to hit that bump in the road. I don't wish it on you, but it's going to happen.
Because change is inevitable.
It is. And it's inevitable. The rate of, you know, what amazes me, remember in the old days, that elevator speech that you had, that 30-second elevator speech was a way to intro yourself? Yeah. It's 8 seconds now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah?
Wow.
So, I mean, everything is changing. And when you hit that bump in the road, what do? And that's where, if you don't have hope, and to me, hope is a way that you use hope to set goals, but what you need is faith to get you past the hope. And that's the faith and that believing that the goodness will come. And that's, you know, we have to shift. We really have to stop and shift our perspective. I think that when there's change going on constantly around us, we are focusing on, oh, that's not working. Oh my gosh, that's the biggest mess. That's where our focus is, and we need to change our shift, because Dee Dee, we always find what we're looking for.
Yes, ma'am.
I tell clients every day, look for the good, because you're going to find what you're looking for. And if you're looking for the bad, you're going to find it. So look for that good and be able to recognize when you see it. One of my personal favorite things to do is to celebrate all my small wins. I've just started writing my second book, and you know, it's so hard in the beginning, wah. So I said, you know what you're going to do? Every time you get down 500 words on paper, it's a party.
There you go.
We're going to stop and we're going to celebrate. And because then that gives me hope that next 500, it'll come, it'll show up one way or another. And I think that a lot of people, we all struggle with change. Come on. There's no one that gets up in the morning and has, you know, either something's happened with your job, or something's happened with a family member, or something's happened in the market that has a bad impact on your financial well-being. And we all have things that we struggle with. So what do we do about that? And I think we mentioned it in our first conversation, and that's we take small steps.
Okay.
We break it down. Because when I think, oh, I'm never going to be able to buy a house, you know, the interest rates, they still haven't dropped, and the market's so tight, I'm never going to be able to buy a house. Look at it a different way. Right now, for the rest of this quarter, second quarter of 2025, maybe I won't be able to buy a house. But maybe I can do a market evaluation in the third quarter. Right. Or identify a real estate person to work with. So break it down into micro steps, because when you feel in control, you have hope.
So one of the things I really hear in what you're saying too is look for the positive.
Absolutely.
Like, find something positive. There's something positive even in the hardest of things. You know, I remember when my mom passed away, and that was a huge change for my life. I had lost my dad when I was in my 20s. And then when my mom passed away, it was a huge change because both my parents were gone. And you just go through this weird feeling of orphan, like I'm orphan now, right?
Yep.
And what I remembered is, what is positive in this moment of my life? And what I found is the positive was memories that I had, and thankfulness for the parents that I did have, and the people that surrounded me in the midst of that, and my son and my husband who never left my side, and, you know, the love that, and you could just, all of a sudden, you just keep going down and down this list. Even in the roughest of places, you find the positive.
You do.
And that was hope. And so then that leads us to, okay, what is the plan B even in the midst of those moments? And you and I kind of were talking about that earlier, of like, a lot of times what happens to us in loss like that, or in places we didn't expect, is we never set up for a plan B.
No, we didn't. And, you know, it's okay to not be okay.
Okay.
It's not okay if you choose to do nothing about it. A couple of years ago, I wrote a book, Turn Your Brain On to Get Your Game On.
Oh,
and I wrote that really as an educational tool for people to know you're going to experience some depression in your life, or some anxiety. You're going to experience the unknown, and it's okay if you're not okay. But you've got to stand up and do something about it. And being able, I tell people all the time, I hate to tell you this, but you're going to have to advocate for yourself. You're going to have to advocate for your brain health and advocate for your physical health. And I try to stay away from the words mental health, because there's so much negative stigma associated with it.
Sure.
Back in 2005, when I started having these conversations, I would be talking with somebody, you know, I sense some depression. Oh, no, I'm not depressed.
Yeah.
Or
I'm just having a bad day.
Or I sense some anxiety. I'm not anxious. Look at your body language. But it was so much negative stigma. So in 2009, when I started the Brain Performance Center, I don't use that language anymore. I use brain health. And in 2021, when I started the Brain Performance Institute, I changed, and that's working with organizations to create psychological safety. I changed brain health to brain capital. Because everything you've got is right up here in your brain. And I think that when we can start to look at we're in charge and the role that the brain plays, then we can look at our unhealthy thinking. I've had, when I started the Brain Performance Center in 2009, after the financial hardship in 2008, and it's a cash business, I had the worst case of the shoulds. And have you ever had the shoulds?
I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah. And the shoulds, that's the most unhealthy thinking that we can have. And because the shoulds, they have these two little friends, shame and blame.
Yep. Okay.
You know?
Well, so, yes, I have been there.
Yes. Well, I think we've all had a bad case of the shoulds. And how I work through that is I change those shoulds to coulds. Instead of telling myself, well, no wonder you almost didn't make payroll. You should have done this. You should have done this. I would change that to, well, you could have done this. Well, if I would have done it, what would have happened? Oh, I like that. Well, I don't like that, but I like that. Okay, 60% good, I'll do it. So we've got to just tap into our unhealthy thinking. Do you know anybody that wants to be a perfectionist? Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people that want to be perfect at everything they do.
And it's not possible.
No, ma'am. It's not.
It is.
It's not.
It's get out of your head, because your brain can be your biggest barrier. And those automatic negative thoughts, those ants, well, all or nothing thinking, it's either perfect or it just doesn't cut it. I don't know about you, but my belief is with all the change we have going around us, we live in a gray world. There is no black or white thinking.
I agree with that. And a lot of people want to believe there's black and white.
Absolutely.
And that sometimes I think goes back to what makes it hard when there's change.
You know, and when you think about what makes it hard when there's change, think back. Think back of a time that you had a change. You shared with our audience today what you experienced when you lost your mother, and how you made that, you rewired your brain and got that confidence going, thinking about all, your husband and your son and all the goodness. So when you think about, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. I've faced a change before. I got through it successfully. Ask her, what helped you? You were the first to say, I know what helped me succeed. It was the love. It was support that I got. Come up with a confidence statement. And when you feel that change, that, I can't deal with this. Yes, you can. You absolutely can. And that confidence statement can be really hard for a lot of people to build. But there's some things that we can all do on our own to help build our confidence. And I'm a big believer in the practice of visualization. So I will coach people. Practice your future visualization. That change is standing right there in front of you. No, I don't want to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to have to do it. I don't want to do it. Imagine a positive outcome from that change. So stop. Find a nice, quiet place in your house. Close your eyes. Visualize 3 months out. What does success feel like? How are you dealing with that change? Sometimes when we visualize 3 months out, it's no longer even a problem. But when you imagine that success, really picture it. What are you wearing?
Wow.
What's going on around you? What do you hear? What do you smell? Are there cookies baking in the oven? Pay attention. Stay present in that moment. And then when you stop and you think about that, what's going on around you, ask yourself, what are your strengths? What did you use to get there? And then, I love to have a little chat with my future self. Do it all the time.
Okay, this is good. Okay.
What do you advise me to do? What advice do you have for me? Because with the amount of coaching and counseling I do, I always tell my clients, you know the answer. I really don't.
Wow.
I can just help you process and figure out what that answer is. And when you get through that visualization exercise, write down your insights. What did you see? Write it down. What strengths did you tap into? And what advice did your future self give you?
Yeah, that is so good.
And it's something that you do for yourself. And you can do it, really, I would say, please don't do it in a minute. Please say, I'm going to at least experience my future self for 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
Because if you're going to stop and think about, oh my gosh, where am I? And what am I wearing, and who's with me, and what's going on around me? You can't do that in a minute.
Right. Well, you can't work out and get physically healthy in a minute either. So
That's
you're saying it's the same thing.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like take time to literally work through your emotions, what you're feeling, what your brain is saying, and like process and connect those dots together.
Well, and we talked about how that healthy brain builds brain capital. If you invest in yourself, you'll get a return on investment.
Wow. What does that look like, gently, when you're saying, how do you get to the other side? Because what your brain didn't do was change what changed, correct?
Absolutely.
It didn't change anything but you. So your brain has somehow come to the piece of, okay, this is what it is, and I can't change that. So how do we bridge that gap?
Well, and getting across that bridge can be quite difficult. I've seen people in denial of a change for 12 months or years and years and years. So how you have to get across that bridge is you really have to track your progress.
Okay.
You know, I'm a big believer in goals. Set some goals. Okay, I know that I know I'm going to have to move from this house. My spouse, my partner has moved here, and I know that eventually I'm going to have to leave this home because that's where our family goes. So what's your goal for the first month? What's your goal for the second month? What's your progress? Give yourself feedback. The brain loves feedback. Wow, Leigh, great job this month. Celebrate those small victories, you know, and tap into the brain has a reward system. Anytime you do something that you really like, the brain starts kicking out dopamine, and that's a neurotransmitter. It's a reward transmitter. Now, here's the problem.
Uh-oh.
You do something and you like it, and the brain starts dumping all that dopamine. Then, you know, I really like that. I want to do that again. And then the brain dumps out some more dopamine. And then that I want to do that turns into I need to do that. So you've got, dopamine's a motivation factor, but you've got to manage that. So, you know, but tap into the greatest power that you have physically is your brain.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking this time to be with us and really walk through this with us. And what great points you've made and exercises to think about how we can get through this change right now. And an important time of change. I think we said in our first segment, we even talked about the change that's going on in our church, the change that's going on in our country. We can control how we deal with that change.
Dee Dee, it's a choice.
Yes, ma'am.
You can choose to deal with it, or you can choose not to.
And when you don't, those are usually the moments that you get stuck. You become afraid even more so. Anxiety kicks in even higher.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. You're amazing.
You're so
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And thank you for being with us today. Please know that we are here for you. If you're in the midst of, oh my goodness, change yet again, we get it. We understand. And what I do know too is in living with fear, the Bible tells us that perfect love casts out all fear. And even in the midst of that change and that fear and that anxiety, God is always with us. God is always present. God will never leave us or forsake us. We love you. God bless you. And you can find us on all of the podcast stations out there, but you can also find us on llumc.org. Thank you so much, and God bless.